Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live Wrap Up. Full house here. I'm Joe. We got Isha, Kobe, Joey, Julia, and Josh. Link in the video descriptions to everyone's channel. And of course, be sure to subscribe to our channel right here on YouTube. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our programs. And if you really enjoy all of our programs, invest in us through Patreon. You'll get some Grid Network stickers in the mail sent to you. And of course, we'll read your name on the air like Colin the Show, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew. They invest in us each and every month. Colin's approaching 3 years investing in us. So big thank you to Colin. And you could do a Buy Me a Coffee or YouTube Super Chat if you want to do a one-time investment, or buy a cup of coffee, or say thanks to a member of the Grid Network team, and they'll thank you on the air, because we're all doing this because we love motorsports and want to share our passion of motorsports with you, the audience. Let's get started with MotoGP, the final race of the year, and what an exciting season finale. I know before we went on the air, we talked about how it would have been nice to see if we could have had the championship go a little bit longer in the race, but the MotoGP championship, Pecco Bagnaia, he took the lead on lap one. He then went on, held off Jorge Martin, who was right behind, and then Martin, a costly mistake, got sucked in by the draft, the slipstream of Pecco Bagnaia's bike, went wide, fell to 8th place. Didn't look like he was going to get around Vinales, but then another costly mistake. He made contact with Marc Marquez ahead of him. The two of them crashing out. Race over. Championships over. Pecco Bagnaia taking it. Julia, did Martin cost himself the championship by making mistakes under pressure, or was this a case of hard racing?
He could ended his championship that way specifically because the race was not finished. It wasn't even the middle of the race, so anything could happen. He even had a chance to win, to be honest, because he was fast, and we couldn't know what would happen when he was fighting with Bagnaia, and then Binder and Miller got into the fight as well, and maybe even Marc Marquez if he was not hit from behind with Martin. But yeah, Martin, from the moment he got sucked into that slipstream when he was going after Pecco Bagnaia, wasn't just himself from the beginning of that race. We got to mention that Bagnaia made the same mistake in Qatar before almost crashing into Fabio Di Giannantonio, but then he was not as hot-headed as Jorge Martin was to get his positions back. So we got to say that Jorge Martin kind of in a way costed his championship in that race, his championship fight at least until the end, by this mistake, by going into Marc Marquez, who was doing quite a normal line of the race in that corner, and he had no way of seeing Jorge Martin just coming right under his right elbow. He couldn't even see him because Jorge Martin did not get ahead of Marc Marquez in that corner. He was trying, but then he just went straight, because when he was keeping to that line that's really, really close to the corner line, he had no way of going out like the rest of the riders who took a normal line so they could get nice out right in out of the corner. He just had a way of straightening straight, and he went into the back wheel of Marc Marquez, who took a big gamble into the air and he practically hit his head. Hopefully, and it looks like he's not injured, so hopefully he can take part in testing on Tuesday on his new Ducati. But yeah, this was the moment when it all, of course, ended, and Jorge Martin was really hot-headed today, and I think it had a big impact on what happened then. Also, it said that Marc Marquez had to end his last race with Honda that way, and also that we couldn't see at least championship being alive until the last lap. But that's kind of what happened also in 2021 season with Fabio Quartararo, but it wasn't the last race. But still, I think Martin was just too hot-headed for that coming into that race that weekend with a difference of 14 points. And Bagnaia was just really fast, and he, in the end, after this season, deserved a championship as well.
I mean, there was about 600 people watching concurrently the watch along, and I think 26 and rising at the moment, 1,000 people on the commentary. And I think all of them are deaf now after I screamed down the microphone with a headset that isn't really designed for it. It wasn't one of these beauties that we have in the commentary box of the Audio Technicas. It was a basic USB headset mic because everyone was on at the same time. I was so shocked. I had to double check the timing screen that I knew Mark had gone down. I didn't know if it was Zarco or Martin. I had to double check to make sure. And then I realized, I was like, I do not believe it. What a mistake. He went the inside turn 4, tags the back of Mark. Mark goes flying. Hopefully he's okay, as Julia says, so he can ride his bike on Tuesday in the test. Looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of big to cover as well on the channel. Looking really excited to see how Mark transitions onto a new factory bike. So I think Martin did get out of himself a bit too much today. He looked a bit nervous on the grid. He was nervous going forward. After winning the sprint yesterday, he knew what he needed to do. He had double the distance to do it, and he just kept making the errors. A storming start from 6th to 2nd on that first lap. It was beautiful as well, really was, to get through. And the fight for those couple of laps between the two championship protagonists was beautiful. I thought, oh, God, this is great. Free-to-air television in the UK and hopefully around the world getting on the views of this. Then he tags the back, as Julie said, in the slipstream, the same as Bagnaia to Digi back in Qatar. Just narrowly misses it. 9 times out of 10, you touch your front wheel to someone else's rear tire, you're down on the deck quicker and you're blacked out. It is so hard a hit. He avoided that and then he goes and hits Mark. So, yeah, I'm disappointed. There's one thing. Yeah, the gap was big. Martin can walk away looking like a hero. He has done everything he could to get a championship. Bagnaia has defended it brilliantly. I think it's a great end to what was a great season. But I really feel sorry for Martin. He was crying, and I was like, please don't show these pictures. I was really, really sad. And then the race just turned into absolute hell as well. And me and Megan were in and out leading the commentary as well. So very disjointed. But it was just a crazy 21 minutes of that opening Grand Prix.
The opening laps, when we saw the two of them, I was thinking this is going to go down to the end. Then that mistake. Then it was going to be a matter of can Martin catch up? I just knew he was going to be using up those tires. And then when we saw him go down, I thought it was Zarco too, thinking, oh, is that Zarco? And then we found out it's over. Now, I will say, as Julia had mentioned, when we seen Pecco Bagnaia lose the championship to Fabio Quartararo. Afterwards, he's come back stronger. Great opportunity for Martin to try to come back stronger next year. He knows he's going to have another fast Ducati bike. As for Pecco Bagnaia, he is now a back-to-back champion in MotoGP, and one of the big things, he held off Fabio Di Giannantonio. However, after the race, tire pressure issues for Fabio, so he was sent back down to 4th place. So Johan Zarco and Brad Binder are now your podium finishers, in case you just finished watching the race and haven't heard the news. So we have what was an all Ducati podium, but now KTM, they got Brad Binder on the podium, and a big effort by that KTM team. But we saw Brad Binder, he was leading for a while. He goes wide, he has to take the long lap route to get around. This gave Jack Miller the lead. Jack Miller then crashed out while leading the race. Pecco is the first factory rider for Ducati to win the championship back-to-back seasons in MotoGP. Julia, is this Ducati's finest moment in a dominant season, considering they look like they had potentially another all-Ducati podium? And is 2024 shaping up to be another Ducati season of dominance?
Yeah, considering that they're going to have also Marc Marquez next year, I think it's looking like another great way for Ducati. Like, they're absolutely dominating. Also, the fact that the championship was between two Ducati riders, and big mentions to Pramac that they are the team champions. They're the private satellite team, and they're the team champion, which is just amazing. And also, yeah, Pecco is rated to win 2 consecutive MotoGP championship as a factory rider since Marc Marquez and Valentino Rossi. There are the two others. Marc Marquez in 2019, when he was, of course, 3 years straight champion for Honda, also at the same time battling, for example, Fabio Quartararo and Andrea Dovizioso. But yeah, it's looking still great for Ducati. I mean, obviously, Marc Marquez in their team, amazing stuff. Luca Marini is leaving, that is true. It also looks like Fabio Di Gianantonio's place is also it's gonna be maybe Lucas Marini in Repsol in Famuni, so they're still having him. That's what it looks like. Fabio Di Gianantonio said that he is staying on the grid. He hinted it today, which is just great to hear because he's a GP winner and he was close to winning today as well. I absolutely hate the tire pressure rules and the fact that next year it's supposed to be a disqualification for a rider. I think it may just ruin a championship. So I hope they're gonna change their mind during the winter because they have time. But for Ducati, it still looks great. They're also, besides getting Marc as a rider who can be really competitive and get used to the bike quickly, like even Dani Pedrosa said that Marc is such a great rider. He's so talented that why would he even doubt that he's not gonna get suited for a Ducati? That he just needed some time and he will be great. We don't know if he's going to win a championship, but I think for sure he's going to be competitive. And also his knowledge and how he always wanted, since his years in Moto2 and the first in MotoGP, to get involved with the mechanics, to work on a bike all the time. Not only just develop the bike, but also get involved in every race weekend decision. He's describing it in his book. That's standing there. So he's a great adjustment to a Ducati as a rider with such a great knowledge and experience, even though he's going to Ducati without his great Santi Hernandez, so his mechanic and his chief engineer. But yeah, this is looking maybe like another year of Ducati's dominance, but it was good to see KTM and Aprilia doing great this year, especially KTM. I'm kind of sorry for Jack Miller because it was looking like this one race going to be the sign that he actually can do good at KTM and also as a sweet ending to a bitter season. But it kind of ended as always for Jack. Unfortunately, we did not have Aviva Miller like we were thinking. But yeah, I'm really curious to see also what KTM is going to do next year, especially with Brad Binder, who had been really, really fast.
I just hope it's not a dominance next year for Ducati, for mine and Julia's sake, doing the commentary, because it's going to be like, well, we're going to run out of things to talk about. It was really entertaining this year, and the fact it was entertaining was because we had so many Ducatis on the grid. They all bunched up together, and it gave us an interesting storyline to tell, which was factory versus customer. So we had the factory Ducatis, and then we had Prima Pramac, we had the Muni VR46s, and the third, Grenesci, coming in as well. So it worked that we could tell that story and weave it throughout the year. And there was a couple of KTM wins as well, let's not forget. There was some really storming starts. I think the one I'm taking away from this year and what they're going to develop is that KTM is a fast bike, but it's not a race bike. They've got great starting abilities. We always go on about the Ducati whole shot device, which gets them off the line. KTM developing their own, brilliant off the line. I still think the KTMs are the fastest off from lights out. And I think Yamaha have had another stinker as well. When are they going to start listening? In fact, all the Japanese manufacturers really have had a really bad year, haven't they? So Yamaha to improve. Sorry, it blacked out my screen, so I didn't want to say anything just in case. What was I talking about? Yeah, so all the Yamahas have had a bad season as well. Morbidelli's now leaving that team as well. He's going elsewhere. Fresher coming in as well. Quartararo needs a better teammate in order to progress up through the field, so that's going to be good to see. Honda, well, Julia can attest to this. We've got no idea what's going on with Honda at the moment. It was announced that Luca Marini was leaving his own brother's team. It's sort of expected that he'll just walk into the garage on Tuesday and hop on the bike. To be fair, though, Julia, if me and you just go book a ticket, and Joe, if you want to do it as well, although I know you're in America, so it's quite hard for you to get to Spain within the next 24 hours, but if we hop over, I think if we get leathers on, we could probably have a go at testing the bike on Tuesday. I mean, at this point, Mia is injured. Can't have Bradle because he's testing on the LCR, and there's no one else on the second bike because Mark's gone. Repsol are literally up the creek without a paddle, and I cannot wait to see Tuesday if they run at all with anybody, because they're going to be walking up and down the paddock going, bike for sale, and then no takers. There's no, gone again.
For Honda,
no one can get
takers.
insurance. Nobody can get any money. Nobody wants to ride it. It's a yeah. It's so bad. It's so bad.
Yeah, it just I gotta mention that the front that gave up on Alex Rins today just gave up without any sort of warning. Just it was not. You couldn't ever expect that the front is just gonna give up on Alex Rins and he's gonna lie down. Especially that he was injured not so long ago. It's quite dangerous for him still to go down like that. If Marc Marquez can't do his normal stuff and race and be on the line like he always is, it has been the case of the last 2 seasons, and that's when we knew that Honda is just not a good bike, and Marc was just saving them when he was purely healthy. When he was not healthy, it became a problem.
It's a big problem. I was going to say that offer of riding a MotoGP bike would be great. I broke my leg once on the bike. Nope, don't need to do that. Don't want to get near that Honda. So one of the bikes I would consider is, of course, Ducati, because of how dominant they are. 5 Ducatis in the top 10. 3 of them did not finish the race. Bastianini, Beschecchi, and, of course, Martin. Only 13 riders were left running, so essentially everyone scored points if you finished the race. Josh, were you surprised by the high number of riders not finishing this race?
It very did feel like last day of term, wasn't it? That everybody just wanted to check out early for an early flight. Everyone was just throwing down the road. And the same part of the track is that they had an agreement. Just throw it down here. And the marshals will come up half price on recovery. It was so bizarre. Beschecchi crashed out. Didn't even realise. And then we had Martin go down, obviously, with Marc Marquez. Fernandez then went down. Then Bastianini just barrel rolled into turn 1. Miller ended up nowhere. And then half the field just crashed out, unbeknownst to any of us. I walked out for 5 minutes to cover the end of Formula 1, left Megan in charge. Came back. We lost 6 riders in 5 minutes. How is that possible? It is insane to think how many losses there was today. 13 finishes, everybody getting points. It's not happening. In a season where we've had 40 races, it's ridiculous. How many people are going to get injured on this? It's unheard of. The spares are going to be ridiculous. And don't forget, many people have also going to keep their 23 bike and only add on the aero bits for 24 for the test. So they've got to get all those bikes fixed up and add on the 24 parts, and then they've got no spares. If the 24 crashes, you can't go back to 23, they've broke them all. So Tuesday, we're going to be doing for a lot of filler, I think. And I really hope that there's a lot to talk about and a lot of interviews to throw down to. Otherwise, my voice for 7 hours is going to disappear.
I guess you cannot expect something like that happening because this is really unpredictable totally. I gotta mention just 14 riders finished because we gotta mention that Paul Espargaro was really, really smart for this because he also crashed, but he got on the bike and with a 1 lap gap, he finished, but he was in the points, so he got the points. His last points in MotoGP as he's not active rider next season, and his race finished, so he at least got that. Pretty smart from his side. But yeah, I completely didn't expect that. That was this moment when you had everyone crashing out, and me when I was writing my article, and I was just still focused on describing an incident between Jorge and Mark and trying to explain what happened there and what was the mistake. At least 4 riders crashed out, and I had to remember who did because there are so many of them. And of course, it was Enea Bastianini, and kind of sorry for him. Then Augusto Fernandez, and the rest of the guys. that was pretty surprising, to be honest. Of course, I don't think we want to finish the races without. It's kind of a not so beautiful parallel in the description of this year's season in general, when we generally did not have the full grid in the Grand Prix ever, because we didn't have John Mir today. And we didn't have John Mir today, and I think he was also not in the sprint because I was logged off yesterday. I was in the train, so I didn't watch the sprint. We didn't have a full grid this season. Beside the practices at the beginning of the season in Portimao, we did not have a full grid. Oh, and I think this is the whole description of how crazy this season was, how crazy the sprints were, and how this sport gets so dangerous because of area and other stuff.
Very much a chaotic season with the sprint, not having a full grid. Every race, unheard of. Taking a look at the final GP standings. Overall, we've got Brad Binder, highest finishing non-Ducati rider in 4th place. Aleix Espargaro and Maverick Vinales, 5th and 6th for that Aprilia. Overall, very close between the two of them. Then, of course, we have more Ducati riders with Luca Marini, Alex Marquez. Then Fabio Quartararo, 10th place. Winless this year. Bike wasn't great. Couple times, including today, we saw Franco Morbidelli finish ahead of him. Very quiet effort to get around. Overall, Julia, starting with you, KTM, Aprilia, Yamaha. We talked about Honda not being there, but out of those three, who has the best shot at beating Ducati in 2024?
I love the fact that we are not even trying to mention Honda, and that is fair. They deserve that. And I would go for European. I would go just for European manufacturers like Aprilia and KTM, because Japanese manufacturers lately are just not being able to keep up with what is going on in MotoGP. In World Superbikes, it's Honda I think it's a better position than in MotoGP. Iker Lecuona was doing a spectacular job this season, as well as Xavi Vierge in World Superbikes. But we'll see what's going to be next season. Yamaha was doing good in World Superbikes in the hands of Toprak Razgatlioglu, who now left for BMW. So I would expect BMW to be better. And for MotoGP, I'm just think after this season, when we don't know anything about the next one, I would go for European manufacturers, because I don't think that Yamaha will be able to repair what went wrong in the last few seasons that quickly for the next one. The advantage for them next season, at least, it's supposed to be a fact that they are probably going to have 2 more bikes on the grid. And there is a big suspicion, almost confirmed, that Valentino Rossi is going to sign a contract with Mooney for Yamaha, but from 2025. So next season is still only 2 Yamahas probably on the grid. So still not a good position to develop a new bike that is going to bring them up. Maybe next 2 seasons they're going to work on that. I still think that poor Fabio, because he's like Marc. He was the only one able to do something with Yamaha and MotoGP, just like Marc with Honda. So they are the riders that make a change in the rivalry. So I think it still be the case. For the Ducati rival, I would go for KTM and Aprilia. To be honest, I expected more from Aprilia this season, especially after the 2022. But maybe it's just part of the way to get on top after they started to develop so well. KTM has been working and climbing higher and higher every season they've joined. So we see this particular, I would say, like a tendency to rise higher from KTM all the time. So I would say that they may be a big rival of Ducatis. Especially I would look at Brad Binder, because he knows that bike very well. They have a help of Dani Pedrosa. That's one of the main thing, and Dani is just extraordinary, as we know in that case of developing the bike. They have Pedro Acosta next season, another star addition. Paul Espargaro is now going to be developing the bike, and he's also a really experienced rider who understand technical things. So his knowledge will always be really appreciated next to the ones of Dani Pedrosa. So I would say that KTM, if they're going to use everything very well, they are in a good position to be the main rival of Ducati as a factory.
I'm with you 100% for the same reasoning as well, because KTM has spent so much this year developing the bike. They've got everyone on board. I mean, just look at that race that Dani Pedrosa did at Mazzano. In the sprint, he was ahead of Binder and Miller, and in the race as well, scoring points and even a podium. So I think a third place in the sprint. So definitely KTM have got something if Pedrosa can hop on and all of a sudden it's right up there. So it kind of explains something as well with Binder and Miller. But of course, we've got Pol Espargaro coming in, not Pol Espargaro, Pedro Costa coming in next year into an R&F bike as well on the Aprilia, just to sort of get it in as well. So that's going to be something to watch out for. But I'm looking forward to seeing what this KTM really has to offer and what punch it can have going forward. They stand the best chance at toppling a Ducati. Binder, really impressive, but they've got to stay cool, their riders, and then they'll have an opportunity to get into the victories. I don't think we're going to see anything from Aprilia. Aleix is hit and miss, and Maverick, he had a best shot this weekend and then lost it on the warm-up as well and got demoted to 6th. So Maverick's still finding his feet. I think Aprilia could take a while. They'll win a couple of races, but I think next year we stand a very good chance if KTM hit the ball running that it would be them v Ducati, all of them together. And just to touch on what Julia said about Valentino Rossi, how stupid is he? Literally. I know he's got this love affair with Yamaha, but Ducati are the fastest bike in MotoGP at the moment. It's taken them a long, long time to get there. And they would have a world championship bike year after year now from the customer team. So now next year, in 2024, Mooney VR46, whatever the name becomes, they get this year's bike. And then they get the year after. So why change to a Yamaha, which is one of the slowest on the field? It's just, again, Valentino Rossi thinking as a rider, thinking of why he had emotional connections and not thinking like a businessman. You stick with the fastest bike. If I'm betting on a horse at the Grand National, I'm not going to pick the one that's never won a race. I'm going to pick the favourite and then one in the midfield. You don't go and pick the slowest bike. I would rather choose Honda than a Yamaha, and because the Honda does have pace. It won a race this year. Marc Marquez's chassis won a race at Kota, so Yamaha have not. So what is he thinking? I don't know. He's just, age is getting to him. Maybe it's the long nights with the new baby. Although the baby's 2 now, so who knows? Teething wings, baby.
It's going to be really interesting 2024 to see what happens with VR46. Now, 2023 season officially over now. Point standings, the champion, Pecco Bagnaia, 2 in a row. One of the big things overall, Josh, what will stand out from this year's MotoGP season?
For me, Jake Dixon in Moto2 getting his first win at Assen. I thought that was fantastic. I know Julia was in the commentary box for us that weekend. The passion was just amazing for Jake in the paddock as well to win and then have that going forward. It was brilliant. In terms of MotoGP, the Ducati domination as well. Many people have been going around the paddock jokingly calling it D-Day, Ducati Day, not Dunkirk Day, or Decision Day, whatever it was. But it was literally been the Ducati war this season, and it's been customer versus factory, and it's been epic. It has been brilliant. I think it'll be remembered for the underdog of Martin coming through and showing everybody he's got teeth. I think it's going to come with Bagnaia proving that when challenged, he can stay up to the pressure. Personally, from a broadcasting point of view, I think this season's been epic. The sprint races have sort of worked at some tracks, haven't at others. The racing's been really close. And I'm struggling to think of a weekend when I've walked away, when we haven't been blocked by Dorna. I'm struggling to think of a weekend where I've gone, do you know, isn't MotoGP boring? I've never done that. Whereas in Formula One, I've gone, yeah, that was a bit of a rubbish weekend. Never have with MotoGP this season. So whatever they've done, it seems to have worked. And going forward, I'm looking forward to some classic races. And I'm trying to think of the best race of the year, but it's like when someone asks you what's your favourite book. It's just gone straight over. I can't think of a race this year that's been my favourite in MotoGP. What did you say, Netherlands?
Thailand, I would say.
Oh, Thailand. Oh, yeah, Thailand was good. Thailand was really good.
Honestly, I think it was only beaten by a race in Superbikes in Jerez, because it was the same evening, and then Toprak, Grosjean, and Alvaro Bautista overtake each other for 8 laps every corner. 8 laps every corner. No, 12 laps. 12 laps every corner. They were overtaking each other, and that's that's only thing that beaten Thailand this year, I think.
I forgot about Thailand. See, I can't remember everything. It's been a long day. So yeah, I'd go with Thailand as well. There's another one that was up there as well earlier on in the year. It was Moto 3 at Sachsenring. Dennis Onchu. I thought, what an intelligent ride. He was planning that dive bomb I can't remember who was leading the race that time, but he was planning it lap after lap and shaping up, and he did it at the last corner, and everyone said, oh, he can ride, he can do it. Or Tola.
And he can plan because he's normally really hot-headed, kind of like his brother, because I know his brother very well. We met each other in World SBK paddock, and they're both pretty hot-headed, but then we say that they can plan their attacks.
I think Moto 2 as well was that race in America, the 3-way at the end of the race as well, and Altola getting the win. That was brilliant. I'm trying to think of a race which has really been, apart from Thailand, because there. I'm trying to think. Japan was weird. That shouldn't have happened. But yeah, Australia.
Australia is always brilliant. Phillip Island is always brilliant. I would say Koda and Alex Rins, the only Honda winner.
Yeah, this season's been epic, hasn't it? It's given us little treats along the way, and I think a lot of first-time winners. I just loved it, and I think we've had sprint wins as well for Alex Marquez. It's been great, and I think we're in for a treat in 2024. I really hope so. I think right now, MotoGP has better racing than Formula One, and arguably better racing than any of the other series on the planet right now, because it is wheel to wheel, elbow to elbow, and in some cases, foot to rear as well, if you're in Moto 2.
Yeah, I'm always advocating for Superbikes, as you know, because there can be sometimes MotoGP on the head, but they both are great. For me, God, there's so much things that happened this season, but I can't help to mention Fabio Di Giannantonio and what he did to keep his dream alive and to stay in MotoGP and to show that he really deserved it, because he needed more time to get used to that Ducati Gresini's bike, but he did, and he's one of the best riders on the grid right now, and he fully deserved to have a job in MotoGP and to be competitive in the future. So he was a great surprise. I would call him in Speedway in PGA Ekstraliga in Poland. We always choose the surprise of the season, and if we had something like that in MotoGP, it would be Fabio Di Giannantonio all the way. And also, of course, I think the highlight of the season was Dani Pedrosa and his great rides with the wild card, and the fact that we all miss him so much. Mark as well, I guess. Whole Mark's saga with leaving Honda, and how hard this decision was him, and the fact that we never expected we could see Marc Marquez on a different bike in MotoGP, especially that he was always dominating with Honda, riding Honda, and of course after his injury it all went spiraling down, but we never expected this moment is gonna come, especially that Ducati was saying that they don't need him, they have such young riders, but in the end I think you always need Marc Marquez, because he's not only a great talented and aggressive rider, he's got such a knowledge and such an experience that he's always a great addition. Joan Zarco winning his first race in MotoGP, something I never thought I'm gonna see, and I'm gonna be alive to see, to be honest, after such a long period of him not winning. Of course, always some drama, like the tire pressure drama we have now, all the injuries we had, Alessio Spargaro doing what he did to Franco Morbidelli, hitting him on the head, which I think was absolutely unacceptable, to be honest. But we know that Aleix is hot-headed, and he'd always been. And I think his penalty was just deserved. To be honest, wow, so many things happened this season. The sprints, I think, are on point. They are a great addition to the season. It was about the calendar, for example. We just seen that we need all those overseas races because they give us the greatest adventures of the season. Thailand, Phillip Island is always amazing. We could race in Phillip Island every week and would have a different winner, I think. Amazing. Of course, Jorge Martin and him hunting down Pecco Bagnaia, even becoming a championship leader for some time. Amazing stuff. It was great to see. Marco Bezzecchi being in the fights, Luca Marini going through, Marc Marquez being able to score podium, Alexis Rins win in Kota, the only one Honda, and this Honda before he was injured, And then also the worst stuff like the injuries and other things. KTM going through. So this season was full of such amazing moments, good and bad, that it's kind of a sorrow to finish it right now. But I think it was great that we've seen championship going down to Valencia. This is always a dream of every fan, I think, for championship to go down to the last round, to the last race. And this is great because we've last seen it in 2017 with Marc Marquez and Andrea Dovizioso. So it's been a while and we love it. I don't think it's going to happen in Formula One for a very long time or ever again, to be honest. Like, for example, 2016, Lewis and Nico, or Lewis and Max in 21, or Lewis and, in Brazil in 2008. That was a big one. That was a crazy one. This was a level of MotoGP, to be honest, with the craziness. Great season. I loved it, and I can't wait for the next one because I think we're going to see a lot of interesting stuff. Can't wait to see Marc Marquez on a Ducati. Just can't wait. And I think many people agree with me. Pedro Acosta in MotoGP also can't wait. I think it's going to be an amazing season, and that's why we all love MotoGP.
For me, the three things that stand out: Circuit of America, Alex Rins win. That was a big surprise. Zarco getting the win. We know that's been something everybody's been talking about. The memes, they're all gone now. He got to win. Phillip Island, for me, I think is the race of the year. That was always thrilling. Always a great race. And what a 2023 season. Of course, we'll be following 2024. And we encourage everyone, be sure to visit the link in the video description for Julia's channel of all things motorcycle. Julia, thank you so much for your time as always. Before we let you go, what is your one shining moment?
One shining moment. Oh my God. That is so hard, to be honest. Because as I said, this season was full of so many different things and great races and great riders finishing and making their dreams, like Fabio and Gianantonio or the rest. But to be honest, for me personally, because I think I'm gonna take a personal aspect for me, it's gonna be what Dani Pedrosa can still do, to be honest. The fact that he was so close and had the pace to finish on a podium when he just has wild cards from times to times, and he just can come in, get on this KTM and be a rival to the Ducatis, even to Pecco Bagnaia, who won a championship this year. That is just extraordinary, and it proves that just Dani Pedrosa is one and only. There is no other like him, just like there is no other like Marc Marquez. And this season still proves to us that he's a great rider, because even if he's got a bike like that so dangerous, he can do an amazing things. And there was no other rider like Valentino Rossi, like Andrea Dovizioso, like Jorge Lorenzo, like Mick Doohan. And this is just amazing. And this is MotoGP. What Dani Pedrosa, for example, can do. And it proves that he's got a talent. He's a great class. And he's one of the athletes that should have been a multiple world champion even, but he never had an opportunity to do so.
If I could just joke quickly, I just want to say to Julia as well, because she wasn't on the JP Motorsports end of year wrap up at the end of the segment. I just want to say thank you for joining us for those races in MotoGP and MotoGP Moto3 throughout the year. Brilliant working with you this season as well. And I hope you come back next year as well for some more commentaries.
Thank you so much, Josh. Thank you to you, Bob and Josh, and everyone, General, for inviting me and always, keeping me in mind and that I can talk here, share my opinions and other things. So thank you all so much for cooperating. Thank you for this season, not only MotoGP, but also Formula One and all the rest series of the motorsport. I think we all love those sports. We do a great job. So I hope we all just load up batteries during the winter and came back strong for the next seasons, because they are going to be great, as always.
Definitely. I think everyone's looking forward to charging up the batteries for the off season. Julia, thank you so much. And once again, link in the video description for everything motorcycles. Kobe, we got to go to Formula One now. The championship may have been over, but we saw some thrilling battles on the track for point positions.
Yeah, and the Formula One season finale in Abu Dhabi saw Max Verstappen win for the 19th time in 2023. Red Bull won all but one Grand Prix and one sprint race, but the battle for second place in the constructors and fourth place in the drivers came down to the last lap. Mercedes beat Ferrari by 3 points as Charles Leclerc tried to give Sergio Perez DRS and even allowed him to pass on the last lap. Lewis Hamilton tried to get around Yuki Tsunoda but could not make the pass stick. Perez could not get more than 5 seconds ahead of George Russell, and that was the difference between second and third place in the constructors. And now bringing on Isha, Joey, and Josh. It's starting with you, Isha. How relieved is Mercedes to claim second? Do you anticipate their new car to be well ahead of Ferrari 2024? Do you think Ferrari is going to be stronger?
Yeah, Kobe, Mercedes has got to be very relieved. They've had a bit of a tough season with the W14. Toto and Lewis have been very vocal about their struggles this season. But for them to finish in second with the W14 in the championship and to finish off the season in this way, it's sort of like finishing in first in a way, because you've got Red Bull in first, so they're the most dominant team. They're sort of like they're like in their own league. So for Mercedes to finish in second, it's kind of like coming in first for all the other regular teams. But to answer the second part of your question, it's hard to say what the car is going to look like next season. Um, if it's going to be stronger than Ferrari, you can't really say, because both of the cars have had their fair share of struggles this season. They have their pros, they have their cons, especially with the Mercedes. As I mentioned, the drivers and the team, they really have not liked the W14. It's been really difficult for them this season. So I think that they're really going to try their hardest to bring a good car next season. And I sort of expect the majority of these teams, like Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, to just have more improved cars. And I know we're going to talk about this later, but to just bring more upgrades and more improvements and an overall better season.
I think this is going to be the first year that I'm not entering the winter break on the Ferrari hype train already. I'm usually finding some way to still pull for Ferrari, but this was their best chance because, we've seen that Mercedes has struggled for the past 2 years with this car design. McLaren hadn't got it right at the beginning of this year and only came on in the second half. Aston Martin had it right in the first half and somehow managed to unlearn what they had learned. So all of their competition, except for Red Bull, was really off the table, and they still couldn't manage to clinch second in the constructors. So when all that comes back into play next year, I don't think we're worried about whether Mercedes and Ferrari are going to be fighting for P2 again. I think Ferrari is going to be lucky to not get P5.
Yeah, I think Mercedes are wanting to throw this W14 off the tallest building, and they have a media tour at the Petronas Towers in around about 52 hours' time. So if anybody wants to meet me, floor 110, no ground floor seats, unfortunately, as well, and we'll just throw it off the edge of the cliff. It has been one of their worst cars, a winless car, winless Mercedes for the first time since 2011. They've won every year then for over 10 years, and they didn't this year. Really bad. It's the first time. Also, no British driver or no British team has won us in a racing season since 1998. So, Sorry about that. Internet connection, I think. To claim second in the championship is... Yes, I'm back. Am I good? Good. I'll try again. So to claim second in the Constructors' Championship is going to mean a lot to them. But 110%, it is not going to be their top goal. They are going to be wanting world championships and race victories. They should never be in a position when they had to fight off Ferrari, who have won a race this year. I think Ferrari is the biggest letdown of all, as is Aston Martin, who dropped back into 5th place in the Constructors, getting beaten by McLaren, who at the start of the year had a double DNF in both races. They fought back so hard. So I think, if anything, Mercedes are now not looking at Ferrari being worried next year. They're looking at McLaren, who've got their same engines. They're going to be worried that next year it's going to be them v McLaren. And I'm really interested to see how much the development for next year is going to be. I think next year the running order after testing is going to be Red Bull, McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari in that order. So Ferrari, the 4th fastest team. Aston, I think, will be 5th. And then it's a fight. Williams 6th. AlphaTauri Racing Bulls in 7th. Haas will be 8th. 9th will be whatever. I can't remember who's on the team. That will be Sauber. And the last team on the grid in 10th. I'm running out of names here. Who haven't I mentioned? I'm trying to look down the order. I think I've mentioned them all, just miscounted. So I think that's going to be an interesting order looking back on it, because it's evolution, not revolution. That's what I said at the start of this season. And it's the same game for 2024. You're stuck with these cars effectively until the end of 25, and then 26 is the big one. So it's just make or break. And I think with McLaren getting better and better and better, showing you can develop these cars and we can have close races. So watch out for them.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of work for these teams to do over the short off season they have, and I'll be interested to see which teams can come straight out of the box and execute at the beginning of the 2024 season. And the battle for second place in the constructors continue back and forth throughout the race. The same can be true for 4th place in the driver's standings, which Charles Leclerc held at one point, and then Lando Norris, and ultimately 4th ended in a tie between Fernando Alonso and Charles Leclerc. Alonso ended up winning a tiebreaker because he had more second place finishes. Norris was 1 point behind the two, and Sainz was 7 with no points scored. Joe, I'm going to start with you on this question. I know yesterday we were all on the McLaren hype train, saying that saying that Lando Norris had this in the bag, and now
you know what? Well, honestly, one of the things that we said more than anything was that Alonso was not in this race. We said Sainz was going to come. I said Sainz was going to come through the pack. He didn't, partially through no fault of his own. Trying to 2-stop a 1-stop strategy doesn't seem to work. Norris and Leclerc both performed very well this race, but Alonso, being the consistent man that he is, managed to hold on to that and literally did just the bare minimum of what he needed to do to stay ahead and stay in 4th. So very impressive from him. This is one of the things that does kind of throw into sharp relief just how compelling this season might have been if it weren't for Red Bull. This fight, a 4-way battle that went down to the end, the final race. And for this position, yes, Hamilton's ahead in 3rd, if you discount the Red Bulls, but this is still compelling stuff. And it's tough to see how we're going to get that again next year, being the two kind of curves that we saw from Aston Martin and McLaren, one starting so low, one starting so high, and then kind of leveling out throughout the season. I honestly don't know how Alonso is going to top a year like this, because like Josh was saying, I don't think the Aston Martin is going to have it next year. I do think they're going to be faster than Ferrari, but with the way Mercedes is going to change their car, with the way that McLaren has figured out their car, I think they're going to be off the pace. So this was a great result for Alonso.
Back to his early season form, of course, to get up there and keep 4th. I was surprised he did take it. But Charles Leclerc, He's been a bit here and there and everywhere, hasn't he, in the past couple of races? So there's room to be found. I am very much excited to see what Alonso can do next year if Aston Martin give him a competent teammate, because Stroll was 132 points back at the end of the season, and that's just not good enough. Really, really not good enough. So I'm look, there he is on the standings, 74 to 206. Do the math. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see if Alonso gets a competent teammate, how high they can actually work together to get more points between them. For Charles Leclerc to finish fifth in the drivers, when last year he finished up there higher. No, not good. Great job though for Lewis Hamilton for third place. I thought that's a big surprise for me, considering he hasn't been there in the last couple of races. And 110%, I think that George Russell's going to leave here very ashamed to finish down in 8th place, when last year he outqualified Hamilton in the end of the season in terms of points.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. And coming back to the question, I was extremely surprised. We've been talking about this for the past 2 weekends, and last weekend in Vegas, I said that it would be Carlos Sainz winning 4th. And then after the quali yesterday, I said that it'd be Lando Norris, but never had I imagined it'd be Fernando Alonso. So it's really surprising to see him winning in the 4th place, especially through like a tie-breaking scenario. But I guess it's a good representation of what Formula One's like, and how when there's good racing and close racing, like we've seen since the summer break, how interesting things can be and how quickly things can change. Had one driver scored an extra point, had this happened, had that happened, it would be a completely different scenario. But overall, I was pretty surprised. But it's interesting to see what's happened.
Yeah, I was also very surprised that Alonso ended up taking 4th in the standings. I really thought it was going to be Lando Norris, because I know they had some great expectations heading into this weekend. I know Lando was very frustrated with his qualifying lap, because he thought he could have potentially put it on the front row alongside Max, but ended up making a mistake on his qualifying lap. Wasn't able to get the pace that he wanted there. But kudos to Fernando Alonso and Aston Martin for coming back a little stronger towards the end of the season. I know they kind of went missing in action over the summer after such a strong start to the year, but to end 4th place, considering what happened in the middle of the season, I think Aston Martin and Alonso have to be pleased with how that happened. And I'm going to bring everybody back on for a follow-up question. As we've been mentioning, McLaren looked very fast early on, but the strategy just didn't work out. And Lando Norris would have had the tiebreaker if he had scored the fastest lap bonus point. Josh, I'm going to start with you on this one. How disappointing is this for Norris and McLaren after entering the weekend with such high expectations?
It was that slow rear stop, wasn't it? Just cost him, and it was downhill from there. McLaren never able to fight back with it as well. They got out of position, they got into traffic, and it was all gone. Really poor race performance from him. What promised to be such an amazing job. I said in the commentary on the opening lap as well. He started 6th. He was already up to 4th by the time we got to turn 4. It was brilliant. Piastri in 3rd. As you were talking about yesterday, Joey, he had to clear Russell to get through, and they did that, and it was right there behind. And I was like, oh, this will be perfect. Brilliant racing. And it just gave up at the line. I was very much disappointed for that one as well. I've got to step out of the commentary box for a minute, though, so it's perfect timing for that to fix something. But yeah, I thought McLaren definitely need to fix that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Josh. It was really disappointing for us fans, but obviously more disappointing for Lando and for McLaren. Things could have been so different if yesterday during Q3, he hadn't had that slip. He was really disappointed about it afterwards, upset with himself. And in the post-quali interview, Lando mentioned how his main goal for today was to get in front of Oscar and take that 3rd position. And just it didn't happen today. Not only did he not get on the podium after the race, but he didn't get that 4th place spot in the championship as well. So it's got to be really disappointing for him and McLaren. But I think that when you're thinking about these thoughts, it's easy to forget how much progress they've made and where they were at the start of the season. So I think that, with all the improvements that they've brought and all the success that they've had since the summer break, I think that walking into 2024, their heads should be held high, and they should just look at this overall as a positive thing, because they've come a really, really long way.
Yeah, this has been an interesting season for them, and it's amazing to kind of be disappointed with the results in the last few races, looking at where they started, because it's been such a roller coaster. But they also had, we're talking about losing this in a pit stop, in a 5-second pit stop. They also have the overall all-time record this year and forever, for all races past, for the fastest pit stop that has ever happened. So to go from the high of that to losing out on this, losing out on 4th and dropping all the way down to 6th, probably because of a pit stop, which, as a driver is out of your control unless you're, missing your marks. That's got to hit hard for him. But like we've all said, they were pretty good on points at the end of the year. Given how bad they started, that's just more promise for next year. Once they've got this car figured out and they can do a whole year with a good car, and with Piastri no longer being a rookie, he came up to terms very quickly with this car. So next year is all signs point to McLaren having a very good year next year.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to see how that ended for Lando with the pit stop, but as they say, we win as a team, we lose as a team, and unfortunately they end up losing as a team. But like you were saying, Joy, there's been a lot of high points for McLaren this year, and we've talked many times on this show where they were at the beginning of the year. McLaren, when they were in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, at the very back of the grid, it looked like McLaren was going to be bringing up the rear, potentially just fighting in the midfield. But McLaren, they've improved this car so much this year, and that's a lot to be proud of. And we saw Lando and Oscar both have some really great runs throughout the season, and this car has definitely exceeded a lot of people's expectations. So I think heading into the 2024 season, McLaren has to be very, very excited about their potential next year. And for all spectators around the world of Formula One, we're hoping that McLaren is going to have a strong enough car to take the fight to Red Bull, so it won't be a Max Verstappen show all season long. But at least McLaren ended up finishing ahead of Aston Martin, the constructors, to take 4th. Williams held off AlphaTauri for 7th in the constructor standing. Yuki Tsunoda leading laps, had a great race. He really likes his Abu Dhabi track. He ended up holding off Lewis Hamilton as well. 3 points was the difference between Williams and AlphaTauri. Joey, despite not taking 7th, does AlphaTauri still have to feel good about next year as the team undergoes yet another brand change?
I think it's a little bit of false hope, honestly, because you talking to James Vowles at the end of the race in post-race interviews, he mentioned, and he's mentioned this before, Williams stopped development on the 2023 car in favor of focusing on 2024. They had some great results with Albon, and once they knew those points were in the bag, they gambled and they said, we're going to hold on to 7th place. We don't know by how much, but we think we're going to do it. We're going to focus on next year's car to capitalize on this momentum that we have in this game. And so AlphaTauri coming up at the end, that might feel promising, but it's only because Williams is focused on next year already. And there's so many shakeups that are going to happen at AlphaTauri. New name, France Tost is no longer going to be there. They've had driver changes like you wouldn't believe this year. They're going to finally have some stability there. But I think Williams is going to start next year a lot stronger than AlphaTauri.
Yeah, the brand change is ridiculous, isn't it? It's almost like changing between one thing or the other as well, and just expecting no one to notice any difference. It's practically what they're doing, and it really is getting on my nerves with it, as I deafen everyone. Megan's left her headset on. I've just realised that. I've looked down to make that joke, and Megan's left her headset on. She's left the commentary box in a hurry. I think AlphaTauri will have a big boost to get up there as well. Not taking 7th, yes, finishing behind Williams, but they have got something now with that car. They know that they've got drivers who can score points. They know they've got drivers who are now competitive. Yuki Tsunoda is such an amazing driver. Honestly, I go on about him so much, but he really impressed me. On his day, he is quick. And we saw it today. He was leading the race comfortably for a couple of laps. He was maintaining and, in fact, increasing gaps over Verstappen several times until he came in for a pit stop. I reckon Tsunoda has just ticked off something big there in his F1 bucket list. And I think as well, Danny Ricciardo, yes, old dog, new tricks. But next year, this is the thing, as Joey just mentioned, next year it is the same car as Red Bull, the same engine, and they are equal. I bet you it will be them two fighting together in the championship hunt. And that adds more cars to it. So I'm happy. And I really hope that Yuki gets a win next year at some point. We know that AlphaTauri can win, and we know that Yuki can do it because we've seen him in junior formulas. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed on that one. But yeah, sorry for deafening you all with that joke, but Megan's left her headset on when I was doing that.
Yeah, we have 97 days until the first race weekend of 2024 and the proposed 24 race schedule. Everyone is excited to see Red Bull and Mercedes retire their cars. I'm sure Lewis Hamilton wants to throw that Mercedes in a fire pit by now and get a fresh start in 2000. Yeah, and try to get a fresh start in 2024, but the record will stand. Max Verstappen has more wins than Sebastian Vettel. All of Verstappen's wins are with Red Bull, and he's currently third on the all-time list of most wins in Formula One. And here's a stat of all active drivers: Lewis Hamilton's ahead of Max Verstappen with 103 wins, and then Alonso's third with 32 wins. The next active driver behind Hamilton and Verstappen, Valtteri Bottas with 10 wins. Ricardo has 8, and 6 for Sergio Perez. Joey, if Mercedes brings a car that can contend with Red Bull, McLaren continues to improve pace, and Ferrari gets better as well, does 2024 look more promising than this year? And do you anticipate another repeat of Red Bull's dominance?
Well, so here's the problem with this, and it's one of the reasons that Verstappen is so dominant with a teammate like Perez, whereas, when Hamilton and Rosberg were together, the two of them were fighting each other. They were taking points off of each other. What I think is going to happen next year is Red Bull is going to be that little bit ahead, and everyone else is going to improve to a almost equal level. So what we're going to have is Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, Aston Martin taking points off of each other, and also probably Perez down in that mix as well. So we are still probably going to have a decent amount of Max Verstappen dominance. Probably not as much as this year, but the racing is going to be closer. But because all of those guys are going to have to be sniping at each other to get their points, Max is going to actually start to creep away partially because of that. That's my theory anyway. Josh also has a theory, and he's hiding it behind a curtain there.
Just checking. Yeah, all good.
Yeah, no, sorry.
So,
pay no attention to that man in front of the checkered flag.
I'm not here. I'll hide. I've got a green screen I should really set up. I'll tell you one thing as well. I don't think next year we're going to see that big of a difference, but should I mention the one thing that we've all forgotten? Red Bull still haven't paid the price for breaching the cost cap in 2021. We always knew it would affect 2024 most of all. And the reason for that is because they break it in 21, it's found out in 22, it's hampered in 23, applied, so they can't do aero regulation testing, and it's affecting 24. So that's what I've always been saying. So it's next year's Red Bull that is going to have the least to be developed upon, because they would have lost aero time because of the cost cap breach. So it's next year that you've got to look for Red Bull struggling. With that, I think McLaren will come up as the second fastest team. Mercedes v Ferrari is going to be an interesting battle for third. And then fourth and fifth, I think, will be where Aston Martin will about line up. So pretty much what we're seeing in the Constructors' Championship now, but add McLaren up a couple of places. So definitely Red Bull next year are going to have that cost cap looming over them for the first half of the season as not having any aero development time. By the time we get to the middle half of the season, they can upgrade their car again moving forward. By then, we just got to hope that they haven't had enough time this year and such a strong car now to keep that going into 24, because now McLaren have extra wind time compared to them. It's 70% reduction. So Red Bull get 30%. McLaren, with a brand new wind tunnel that works better, have got 100%. This is why I'm already saying we've been over 3 hours. McLaren could be very strong next year in the championship.
But Josh, I'm going to throw this at you really quick before we go to Isha. If AlphaTauri or Baby Bull or whatever they're going to be called next year has the same car and has an allocation of wind tunnel time, are they going to be able to share information with Red Bull? Because if they do have the same car, they now have the data points that match, and Red Bull might not need that much development time. They've also started the development earlier than everybody else because they've had the ability to do so. So they might be in a position to use, like, already this idea of handing over the same car they've straight up been told they can't do this before. Back in the Toro Rosso days, the Toro Rosso was just last year's Red Bull, and they were told they couldn't do that. Now they're going to say, oh, we can develop the same car for both teams. Personally, I don't think that that's actually going to happen. I don't think Red Bull would allow that to happen unless it was all because of knowing about 2024, knowing they were going to get the hit from the 2021 cost cap this year, and knowing that this was going to be a possibility and they needed that wind tunnel time testing. So that is 4D chess levels of strategy, but Red Bull's the team to do it, right? Isha, what do you think?
Yeah, great points from both of you guys. Going back to the question, Kobe, as you said, if all of that happens, Mercedes brings a car that can contend with the Red Bull. McLaren continues its pace and brings some more upgrades to their new car. And Ferrari improves not just the car, but also their strategies. Ferrari has a lot that they need to improve before next season if they want to keep up with the McLaren and Mercedes and Red Bulls. But I think that overall 2024 could look more promising. There always is a chance that it could be another recap of this season with Red Bull dominance, Max Verstappen dominance specifically, but I would like to go into 2024 with more positivity. And I'm going to say that, if all these teams can bring more improvements to their cars, I think that's going to be closer racing, an actual competition for the championship, hopefully. And I think that 2024 is going to be more promising.
Yeah, Ferrari does have two great strategists, by the way. They're just both in the car. That's the only problem.
That's very true. And we've seen lots of evidence for it throughout this season as well.
Yeah.
Well, I'd hate to point out, don't put too much on AlphaTauri then, because considering that Ferrari's ex-technical director, ex-strategy chief is now their team principal, and I slated that man very, very hard in the commentary box over the last couple of years. Yeah, bye-bye Racing Bulls. Nice to never have met you, and all that data we just said about, never mind, because coincidentally, he forgot his reading glasses, so he can't read the data.
Yeah, and Josh, I'm gonna throw a question right back at you. That with the 2023 Formula One season now in the books, what are some standout moments from this season dominated by Verstappen and Red Bull?
I have to get my thing off the wall here and the commentary box to go through because it's been such a long season. Right, Bahrain, boring. Saudi Arabia, interesting, but only for Perez, boring. Australia, wow, boring for the first 45 minutes of the race. Then the last 5 laps, everything explodes. People say best race of the year. It wasn't. It was a mistake. Azerbaijan, boring. Miami, well, forgot that was there. Emilia-Romagna, that was the most interesting part of the first half of the season, only because it flooded. Monaco, what a great Grand Prix Monaco was. That was fantastic. Literally, a sort of Noah's Ark was needed in the middle of that race. It was brilliant. Spain, what a great race Spain was. And it was yes, brilliant. Technical masterclass everywhere because we had to have pit stop strategies and Max having to defend against Hamilton as well coming through. And then Lando was in there as well in the mix for 10th place. Great race over there in Spain. Canada, that was okay. Austria, another good one. Sprint weekend, that was okay. That was decent. Great Britain, wasn't a classic this year, but it gave us good racing. Going forward, Hungary, boring. Belgium, sprint was interesting. Race was a bit dull. Netherlands, one of the races of the year because it was like what we had. Actually, I'll go back. Belgium was actually okay. Belgium was okay in the Grand Prix. It was another one like we had in Spain. It was the sprint race that was a bit boring because the rain sort of just affected everything for a couple of hours and everyone just slipping around. The Grand Prix was actually another chess masterclass. The same for the Netherlands. It was the most overtakes in a wet Grand Prix at 162. That was a fantastic day. Italy, boring. Singapore, my race of the year. Not because Mercedes Ferrari were at the front for a change, not because Red Bull were different, but because we actually had a Grand Prix. Everyone turned up that weekend and everything got turned on his head. That was good. Japan was okay. Qatar was okay in the sprint race, but the Grand Prix was a mess because Pirelli messed up the tyres and it gave us a champion on a Saturday for the first time in history and it just didn't really work out. Going forward, United States at COTA, another double header, another double great Grand Prix. Really enjoyed COTA. Mexico, red flag drama with Magnussen, restart on hard tyres. That was a great Grand Prix. Perez at turn 1 and it was actually quite good. I enjoyed it. Sao Paulo, okay, Sao Paulo was up and down like a roller coaster. a bit like the track. That was good as well. Las Vegas, what a race. Most overtakes in a dry race in history in 82. And Vegas, we all slated it. We were slating in the commentary in practice because of the drain covers coming up. But boy, oh boy, to deliver a good race. And Abu Dhabi, I think, surprised a lot of people with that. It was actually quite decent one in the dry for what the track could be. So I think that's a bit of a highlight from everything we've had this season.
Thank you for that recap, Josh. I too have some things written down on a post-it right here. I was thinking about it before the show because I knew I'd forget. To keep it short and simple, I'm just going to focus on like the second half of the season. So the first thing that stood out to me the most, Josh, you mentioned this one too, was Singapore. Not just because Carlos won and ended the Red Bull winning streak, but also because it was an actual race. It's what I signed up for as a Formula One fan, right? Seeing unpredictability and surprises in the race. So that was definitely one of my favorite races of the season. And then also McLaren, their just post summer break glow up, you could say, right? The revival or resurrection of McLaren, that definitely stood out for the second half of the season. The Vegas Grand Prix itself, obviously the weekend started off on the absolute worst foot possible, but I feel like the race made up for some of it somehow. It was a really, really incredible race, one of the best this season, many have said. And to finish it off, I'm just going to go with Daniel Ricciardo coming back too. He's a fan favorite. So many people like him. But it was really nice to see him come back, have another chance, and for him to be signed to drive next season as well. So I'm going to keep it short and just end with those four, but obviously there were plenty of moments throughout the season.
Yeah, I think standout moments for me, it's going to be a little bit rude because a lot of them seem to be passes on Perez because he's, in such a great car, but doesn't seem to have that killer instinct that some of the other drivers do. So, in Sao Paulo, you have that pass, the battle with Alonso back and forth, and him getting by, being smart about the DRS and being smart about where he's passing. And then in Las Vegas, you have Leclerc being smart about the passing, braking late, pulling off some amazing moves. They all seem to come at the expense of Perez. And, if I look back and I had my Post-it note as well, I might be able to find more throughout the season. But, short-term memory, those are the two that stick out for me.
Yeah, there were quite a handful of memorable moments in a season dominated by Verstappen, as it was said. And for the sake of time, I'm just gonna say my one standout moment from this season had to be the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Like Josh was saying, heading into this race, we were very frustrated about all the things that were going on. Remember doing the pre-race show on that? We really let Formula One have it with all of the things that seemed to be going wrong, how the fans were being treated, how it was totally unacceptable, and we don't even know how that track passed pre-race weekend inspection. And for them to end with a bang in true Las Vegas style, I thought it was an excellent race. I don't know who designed this track, but they did an excellent job, because typically when we see these new Formula One track designs on the street circuit, are typically not good at all. See the Miami Grand Prix, for example, but Las Vegas, it was just a really great race. Yeah, Max Verstappen ended up winning, but it wasn't easy for him. Sergio Perez, Charles Leclerc, there saw some really great battles, other battles as well. It was just a really, really great race. And I hope Las Vegas is able to improve on what went wrong this year so they can hit the ground running strong in 2024. And maybe this race will become a staple on the Formula One calendar for many, many years to come. And Josh, I know you have to get going. So what was your one shining moment from this racing weekend?
From this racing weekend, I've got to say it has to go to Jorge Martin and Pecco Bagnaia. That amazing fight between the two and the congratulations that they shared. And they say they're not friends, but there is a deep respect there. In total, from the Grid Network this year, as last time I'm on, I want to say I've loved hosting the Grid Tonight Show with you, Kobe, and Matt as well, and everybody else who's joined along on our ramblings on a Wednesday evening. I've loved the pre-shows and the post-shows and everything I've been throwing myself into. Joe being trackside in Portland was amazing. I wish I could have been there with you. Thank you, flights. Loss of money. I would have had it if it wasn't for Dorna blocking, so that was great. But also, Isha, the craziness on a Sunday morning in Japan, the lunatics running the asylum. Kobe, you weren't there. Joe, you weren't there. Having to control the stream. It was a lot of fun. That was sort of woke me up and got me right into the After Dark. That's what Joe said. Yeah, Grid Live After Dark. That was brilliant. Really enjoyed that. Must do that again more often. I've just really enjoyed being on the team this year. Once again, third year now. Really love it. And being just several broadcasts for Adam as well. Yeah, Adam being on the team, on the Grid Network as well. And then he's moved over to other things. He's still on with my stuff as well. Can't wait for that. And I'm really looking forward to also taking a bit of a break. I couldn't miss this last weekend. Now I get a proper recharge. You can probably tell my voice is going. I found out this morning, though, I did the Moto3 start. And I thought, oh dear, you really are losing it, aren't you, Josh? And I said action in Abu Dhabi, and I thought, yep, I'm ready for a break. So I'm going to rest at the voice, do a couple of races, and then come back on the grid shows, back with you, Kobe, next year in January as well. And the whole team back ready to go. I'm looking forward to it. So enjoy the rest of the show and enjoy it. And as always, love being on this amazing team, and we'll see you in 2024.
Thank you, Josh. Really happy with your contributions to Grid Network here in 2023. Looking forward to having you back next year in 2024 as we kick off Grid Tonight, our weekly motorsports news program every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And we're going to let you go. And Joey, I think it's time to talk about some supercars.
All right, let's do it. The final race of 2023 saw a first-time winner in the Repco Supercars Series. Matthew Payne earned his first career win with Grove Racing Ford, making it a Ford sweep. Kobe, how surprised are you from Payne's dominant race?
To be honest, Joey, I wasn't surprised at all. I always knew Matt Payne had this in him from the first time I saw him in a supercar, and he's another one of those supercars drivers from New Zealand. And it was really interesting, talking about all the drivers who have been leaving supercars over the years to go do other things elsewhere in the world. Here's another young Kiwi who I think could be a future superstar in the Repco Supercars Championship. And I know Grove Racing really wanted Matt Payne to be in this car full time a year earlier, but unfortunately, the eligibility requirements just weren't there to get him in the seat. But they hung with him, and it seemed like their patience and determination to get him in the seat have paid off, taking a risk on young Matt Payne, because this was such an impressive performance. During the second half of the season, we really saw Matt Payne start to turn it on as he started to become more comfortable driving this Ford Mustang supercar, and he's just continued improving each and every race weekend. And it finally came to a head as he was able to get his first win on the streets of Adelaide. I think Grove Racing have to be very excited by not just their own development of this car, but also the development of Matt Payne as well. And I know he finished outside of the top 10 in the points this year, but I think next year, if Grove can keep the same form heading into 2024 and Matt Payne continues to improve, I certainly think Matt Payne will finish in the top 10 in points next year.
Yeah, I was betting on the wrong Penrite car. Yesterday I said Reynolds was going to be the one to win. He was up 7 places in the race, though, and finished P3. Brody Konsecki was crowned the champion, while Shane van Gisbergen was plagued with mechanical issues throughout the final race. Still, many tributes were shared about the 3-time Supercar Series champion. Van Gisbergen, excuse me, too much coffee this morning, is coming to the United States for 2024 to compete in NASCAR. So Kobe, with SVG leaving supercars, new champion crowned, a first-time winner, a Kiwi rookie, like you said. It appears Triple Eight Racing has serious competition. How does the Supercar Series look for 2024, despite their biggest name leaving?
And like I said, I believe it was the end of the Gold Coast round. I really think that Supercars is going to be wide open in 2024. We have no idea who's going to be champion. Obviously, Brody Kostecki. I know we're going to talk about this in a little bit. Obviously, Brody Kostecki, defending champion, probably going to be one of the favorites. But seeing how so many teams have been improving, the parity's been up lately in supercars, it would not surprise me if we see a wide open championship out. It goes down to the final round, just like it did this year. I know a lot of people have gotten used to to the domination of Scott McLaughlin and Shane van Gisbergen over the last handful of years in supercars. But this year was completely different. Usually, supercars championship is wrapped up and someone always has one hand on the championship, but it wasn't the case this year. This new Gen 3 car has done exactly what it was meant to do, to make the racing more competitive, to give more teams a chance. We saw a few surprise winners throughout the year, something that you never expect, because I remember in a pickle winner game, everybody just picked Shane van Gisbergen every single week until we finally figured out it just wasn't feasible anymore, because SVG, this Gen 3 car, they were not best friends at all. Kind of like I said, Lewis Hamilton wanted to toss his Mercedes in the fire pit. I'm sure Shane van Gisbergen wants to toss this year's Red Bull Ampel Racing Chevrolet Camaro in the fire pit, because he did not like this car at all. And obviously, losing SVG is a huge blow to the Supercars Championship, looking at everything he's done and how great of a race car driver he is. But I think, like Chad Nyland said from Supercars, he said he believes the sport is in really great hands, especially, seeing Matt Payne rise to the occasion. And then you have, Brody Kostecki. He's really coming to his own this year. Brock Feeney, Chaz Mostert, still really great if they give him a much better car. Will Brown has shown lots of potential. Cam Waters is really great as well. And there's a whole bunch of other young drivers as well who I think can do some great things with supercars. So despite Shane van Gisbergen and Scott McLaughlin leaving for IndyCar and NASCAR, last handful of years, I still think the series is in great hands with a lot of new talent that can rise to the occasion and become the face of the series.
Yeah, plenty of strong competitors in the series. Erebus Motorsport took the drivers and team championship, Chevrolet, the manufacturer. Yesterday, Kobe, we talked about Ford's improvement and how the 2024 season could look good for them if they can keep up this pace. But talk a little bit more about what you were saying about how this is going to be a wide open championship. What are we looking at in 2024?
Yeah, like I was saying, I think Brody Kostecki and Erebus is probably going to end up being the favorites to win the championship again. I know Brody Kostecki has kind of like one eye on America, one eye on Australia, and I know the carrot in America is going to be dangling over him, and it's going to be very enticing. Brody Kostecki is actually going to be coming to the United States as a come weekend to run an endurance race at COTA, where Richard Childress was racing, Austin Dillon and Kyle Busch. Richard Childress was there in Australia. He intends to run Brody Kostecki in some NASCAR Cup Series races next year. And Brody, he started off on the NASCAR path before returning home to Australia to get back into supercars. And Brody's made it clear, that he'd like to give NASCAR another crack someday. So that's something that Brody's going to be thinking about. But he says he has no intention of leaving supercars right now because he still has a lot that he wants to accomplish. Brody's still pretty young, and there's a lot for him to do in supercars. And it's just a matter of when he wants to go, because I'm sure that there's going to be a lot more carrots dangling over him as time goes on. No, Brody still has to try to get the Bathurst 1000. I'm sure that'll be something that'll be very important for him to check out. Maybe get a Sandown, or win at Adelaide on the Gold Coast. Some of those great supercars tracks. But yeah, like I was saying about the wide open championship battle, I think in this year in supercars we've seen kind of a change under the guard for the last handful of years. The top Holden/Chevy team has been the Red Bull Ampel Racing 888 operation. Shane van Gisbergen leading that, and then the top 4 team has been Dick Johnson racing the Shelby Power Fords. But for some reason we've kind of seen them slide back a little bit with Erebus taking the lead as the top Chevrolet team. And then it seems like Penrite Racing is on the rise to potentially be the top 4 team alongside Tickford Racing. David Reynolds and Matt Payne really good towards the end of the year. David Reynolds got the win on the Gold Coast, and then Matt Payne ended up getting the win here in the season finale in Adelaide. And Tickford looks as strong as ever with Cam Waters and Thomas Randall. I think Tickford could make a huge step next season because they're downsizing from a 4-car operation to just 2 cars, so they'll be able to focus solely on Cam Waters and Thomas Randall. And I think when you focus more of those resources in, it's certainly going to make them a more competitive operation. Of James Courtney and Declan Frazier, those seem like the R&D Tickford cars, because they were never truly in the fight like we saw the other 2. And Red Bull Ampel Racing, they're going to have Brock Feeney and Will Brown next season. It'll be interesting to see how they get along those. Ever since Will Brown announced he was moving to Red Bull Ampel Racing, he's kind of like falling off a cliff. I'm like wondering what happened. Wonder if announcing this in the middle of the season on the championship ended up ruining the chemistry of the team. But Will Brown wasn't the same driver after he announced that he would be switching teams, and the performances of him towards the end of the season, that's not going to be up to standards when you're driving for an operation like AAA and replacing a driver like Shane van Gisbergen. But all in all, heading into 2024, I think we could see a battle between Erebus, Red Bull Ampol Racing, and Penrite Racing trying to be the top team. I think we'll see a lot more competitive championship than we saw this year, although it was way more competitive than usual.
Yeah. Well, so I've been complaining about waking up for 5 a.m. races as an F1 fan, but you've been following the entire Supercar Series, 28 races, lots of early mornings for you, I'm sure. So what are some of the standout moments from the 2023 season?
Yeah, the time zone difference is not really an issue for me. I've always been a night owl, but I'm not a morning person. That's why I'm usually watching Formula One highlights to catch up on before we come on the show, because I do not like waking up early. I'd rather stay up later and then go to bed. But yeah, there was quite a handful of really great moments during this year's Supercar season. My favorite one was in Perth when we saw the epic battle between Shane van Gisbergen and Bertie Kostecki, hands down one of the most epic battles of the year. When they were just beating and banging all over each other, trading paint. That was just such an epic battle that I'll remember for a very long time. And then another battle that I believe involving Shane van Gisbergen happened on the race 1 Gold Coast. Him and Cam Waters battling for the win there at the end. That was a really awesome battle. And also some of the surprise winners we saw throughout the year were very memorable, like Jack LeBrock getting the win in the Darwin Triple Crown. Nobody really saw Jack LeBrock getting the win, and also Mark Winterbottom, Frosty getting the win for the first time since I was in high school, which has been a minute, and also David Reynolds getting the win as well on the Gold Coast. It just shows, after the last handful of years of McLaughlin and SVG dominating, we're finally getting to a point in supercars where we're seeing more parity, seeing more drivers in the fight, and overall that's really good for the sport. And moving forward, heading into 2024 with SVG gone, we're going to be interested to see if we're going to enter the era of Bertie Kostecki, but that's going to depend on how long he's willing to stick around in supercars. As I mentioned, that carrot to come to America is just going to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah, like you said, a wide open series for 2024. But that brings an end to the Repco Supercars Series Championship for 2023. We'll now move on to our grid rankings. We'll bring Isha back in. And Isha, tell us about the grid rankings.
Yep, thanks, Joey. So taking a look at the grid ranking, after 35 long weeks, the 2023 grid ranking has come to an end. Max Verstappen becomes the first person to lead the grid ranking every week of the season. He is also the second Formula One driver to win the grid ranking, joining Lewis Hamilton from 2022. Max has the largest margin of victory over second-place Alex Palou, who is the highest finishing IndyCar driver ever. Now, both Palou and Verstappen have a 100% top 10 finish rate. However, Max also has a 100% top 5 finish rate as well. Now, Verstappen had a 90% podium finish rate and a 78% win rate in 2023. So now let's bring everyone in for this question. Joey, we'll start with you. Will we ever, and do we ever, want to see such a high level of dominance again?
Well, so there's a lot of things that played into this level of dominance. We have the longest season we've ever had in F1. We've had the smart team that Red Bull is finally getting on top of their car, which they haven't really done in the V6 turbo hybrid era like this before. And we have a driver like Max Verstappen, who is someone who really just doesn't make mistakes when the car is suited to him. So that combo is what led to this era of dominance. And I don't think we're going to see a season like this ever again. They won all but one race, and this was their shot at it. I think Singapore is going to be a stain on what could have been a perfect record, and I don't think they're going to have another opportunity at that. So I'm kind of happy that we aren't going to see it again, and I don't think we will. What about you guys?
Yeah, Joey. I tend to agree. I definitely don't want to see another season like this ever again in Formula One. I know the Mercedes era of domination, it was a little painful at times, but the Red Bull era of domination, it was a little, right. It was even more painful to watch, because we really want to see a lot more parity in Formula One. And while it was very frustrating to watch Red Bull win almost every single race this season. I do respect what they were able to do. I respect the car that they were able to build. The engineering staff, Adrian Newey, for designing an amazing car that will go down as history as one of the greatest cars in the history of Formula One, and Max Verstappen as well. Kudos to him for the impressive historic season he's had. I certainly respect everything that they accomplished this year, but I want it to be a one and done thing, and hopefully we'll never see that again. I know the one thing that's probably frustrating to Red Bull, I know our own Ben Snyder even said this. He says you either go all in for the perfect season or not, and it has to sting a little bit, to win every single race but Singapore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every race is Singapore, that's going to stand out. Earlier, y'all mentioned how Verstappen has over 50 wins, Lewis Hamilton, and then the third highest is all the way Bottas with only 10, and then everyone's single digits. That just shows the dominance we've had in Formula One with Mercedes, now Red Bull. Can the competition rise up? Potentially, we're seeing some of that, but the big thing, you got to catch Red Bull. If they come out with another strong car, Max Verstappen, the talent he has, what he did this year, leaps and bounds ahead of his teammate and the rest of the field, it could be another long year. Will we ever see it again? I don't think so. I think they're going to have to start closing up the gap. The other drivers, the other teams, they're going to be looking at 2024 as an other opportunity. Then, of course, the new regulations 2026. Do we ever want to see it again? It's something where I know it didn't make exactly the most exciting F1 season, but you look at the historical aspect to say we witnessed that. I still remember when Schumacher dominated F1 like it was nothing. The old Ferrari back then. You will remember it, but yeah, I think it'll be safe to say prefer not to see someone just dominate on that level again.
Yeah. Before we move on, Kobe, I did want to build on what you were saying. You're talking about the Mercedes and Hamilton dominance. What made that feel so different? Because it definitely does feel different. And I think part of it was, early on, Vettel was the only one who was really contending with them in the Ferrari. And then later on, you had Max Verstappen really being the only one contending with Mercedes in the Red Bull. This year, the amount of people that were on the podium that weren't from Red Bull feels like there was so much potential in this season that we didn't get because it culminated with it was accompanied by this dominance. And with a series where you have two drivers, two cars, but 3 spots on the podium, there is no way for a team to lock out the podium. And with Perez having the performance issues that he did, we saw so many other teams up there. And it wasn't like we were seeing Mercedes 2-3. We weren't seeing just a second dominant team like we did in those other days. So it feels more like we got robbed of a really competitive season as well. I think that's one of the reasons this feels so different.
Yeah, you guys all bring great points. And Joey, especially with that last point about how there wasn't just one team besides Red Bull that was dominant. We saw a variety of drivers standing up on the podium throughout the races. This season could have been so amazing, had Red Bull not had the dominant season that they have had. But, going back to the question, as we've all agreed, a general consensus that we would not like to see such a level of dominance again. But you can't deny how amazing this season was for Red Bull, specifically for Max Verstappen, and just, how a season like this you would consider impossible unless you see it happen like we did this season. But anyways, continuing with the grid ranking now, as we all know, the Formula One Championship was decided very early compared to the other motorsport series. 6 of the 7 series in the grid ranking use a full season point system. F1, IndyCar, and World Rally Championship were decided before the final race weekend, whereas Formula E and Supercars were decided on the final weekend before the final race. And MotoGP was the only series to go to the season's final race. Now, 2 people who consistently stood out in some traditionally very competitive series and who took the championship. For the first time in 17 years in IndyCar, we have Alex Palou, who won, and the title was decided early on. And in Formula E, with only 2 wins, we had Jake Dennis, who was consistent in a traditionally chaotic Formula E season. Now, in 2021, after the first lap crash in Alabama, the opening race of the year, Colton Herta said that everyone has one mulligan, or one bad race. In 2023, Alex Palou did not have a bad race. Dennis had a couple of bad races, but so many podiums as well. Now, Kobe, we'll start with you for this question. Do you think that everyone has to step up their game next year and consistently be in the top 10 in their respective series?
Yeah, minus a few racers, like you mentioned with Alex Palou, Max Verstappen having a really great season. It seemed like everyone else, just had a really inconsistent season. Following the grid ranking and looking at the results across all the different series in the grid ranking, you have 1 week of drivers finishing second, the next week he's 20th, and then it's just like a seesaw, up and down, up and down, and that's why you were able to see, like Max Verstappen and some others towards the top of the grid ranking, able to jump out to big lead in their series. And if you look to the very bottom of the grid ranking, scores are really, really low, like in embarrassing levels of low, because we always saw so much inconsistency across the board. So I think if drivers in the grid ranking want to be able to improve their scores in 2023, they definitely need to step up their game a lot and be more consistent and the top 10, because the one thing about the grid ranking, you need to win a lot and you need to be really consistent, or otherwise you're not even going to show up in the ranking, or you're going to be towards the bottom of the board.
Yeah, I know 19 drivers in Formula One that need to step up their game. Looking at that graphic again, the next Formula One driver is in 21st position. Now, we've got some math that goes on to calculate this, but it really throws into sharp relief just how dominant this season has been for Max Verstappen. When we talk about the dominance of Alex Palou compared to that, Scott Dixon's down there, I think 5th or 6th. This is completely different situation between the two series. And, it's one of the complaints that people have had for Formula One is that, you get into this dominant era and there's nothing that other teams can do. Whereas in other series, it's anybody's game, going into a weekend. So I don't know. I think they're in other series. It's just as much, there's just as much opportunity for other drivers, but in Formula One, we really need to see the rest of the teams and the rest of the drivers progress.
Especially in Formula One, as you mentioned, you got to see the rest of the teams. Crazy to think that after Austria, the Austrian Grand Prix, McLaren was the highest scoring team, and Lando Norris was on a tear, just scoring points after points after points. The consistency level, Verstappen had it, Red Bull had it, if Sergio Perez was performing up to level. Really nobody else had it. Then you look at IndyCar, Formula E, Jake Dennis, Alex Palou. What a masterful season. Yeah, Jake Dennis had a couple DNFs, a string of DNFs, but when he finished races, he was on the podium, a high podium finish rate. And then the NASCAR Cup Series, the inconsistency there, of course, they have a playoff format, so they go for wins. They're more willing to take risks that will result in DNFs. No driver in the top 10 from the NASCAR Cup Series. William Byron looked like he was going to get there, but 12th place. So overall, it was just the consistency has to rise up, not just in the series we mentioned, but all over, I think, because at the end of the day, Max Verstappen is going to look really tough to beat. If you're going to have Alex Palou, he had a great season. If Max Verstappen wasn't as dominant, Alex Palou could have easily been the grid ranking world champion. We saw Pecco Bagnaia make a move up with his 7th win this year. In your respective series, you got to be consistent. You got to get those wins, and you just really got to dominate. I know we talked about we don't want to see somebody dominate like Max Verstappen again, but if you want to be there contending in the grid ranking, you got to be going out there getting the championships in your respective series, and consistency will pay off with that.
Definitely. And now, Joe, I'll pass it back over to you so you can talk about our very own Pick a Winner championship.
It was a very close pick a winner this year, but at the end, it came down to it. And once again, Kobe Lambeth from the podium finish, still undefeated. Since we started doing this in 2020, has not been beaten in pick a winner. Alex made it close. Matthew Bro was eliminated yesterday, and then the week before, Matt White. Joey, you got on the board. You're on 22nd now. So
I almost catching up with Logan Sargent in 21st.
Outscoring Logan, and of course, Isha almost getting the top 10 as well too. And we want to thank everyone for Alex being the highest ranked person that's not on the Grid Network team, he's going to get some stickers from the Grid Network as a big congratulations for being the highest ranked person that's not part of the Grid Network team on Pick a Winner. So be sure to watch that in the mail, Alex. Tradition here for you, Kobe. It's 1 minute to brag, bask in the glory, and you've been the only person to do it. So your 1 minute begins.
Yeah, well, Joe, I didn't plan a victory speech or anything like that, but it feels cool, to win, pick a winner 4 times in a row, 4-time world champion of our pick a winner game. But I have a feeling next year is probably going to be someone else, because depending on what happens, I'm probably not going to repeat next year. So I'm going to keep going in 2024 as long as I can. But yeah, the pick a winner is always one of our favorite segments each show, and for certain series, it's very hard to do that. And I see Isha said that I'm the Max Verstappen of Grid Network, so I guess that's accurate considering I've done this 4 years on a row. But I think this year is probably the pick a winner championship I'm most proud of, because I didn't have Shane van Gisbergen carry me to it, because last few years he's literally carried me to the pick a winner championship. And with him not being as dominant as usual, had to try to find points elsewhere, and somehow I was able to luck into that.
And also to mention, I think every year a different person has finished second place. I got the first year, Adam last year, now Alex this year. Somebody got to be consistent enough and try to take it away. Max Verstappen, we got his little face there. Last year was Shane van Gisbergen, Jamie Chadwick. The year before that, Kyle Larson. 2024 might be Max Verstappen dominating again. We'll definitely find out. First race for Pick a Winner 2024, Formula E, the Mexico City Prix, and then after that, IMSA Rolex 24. So January, circle the date so you don't miss Pick a Winner. Joey, we got to wrap up this extended version of Grid Life Wrap Up, the last one of the year, so we might as well go out with a big bang.
All right. Well, let's get into our shining moment. We'll go with Isha first, and also everyone else in the comments. Let us know your shining moment from this weekend. But here on the show, we'll start with Isha.
Yeah, for my shining moment, it's kind of hard to pick. Had it been a more positive Sunday for McLaren, I probably would have gone with something like that. But I feel like Max Verstappen deserves to be given a shout out in our shining moment section today. Not just for the performance he put up today, starting from pole, finishing in first and winning the race, but also the season he's had. We've talked a lot about him, and we've also been a little bit critical of him in some of our episodes, but I think that he deserves a shout out for the amazing season that he's had, and just everything that's been going on in general, And for a second part of my shining moment, I would also like to shout out everyone here at the Grid Network. This was my first year working with you all. I joined halfway, and I've had an amazing time with all of you guys. I've learned so much, and it's been incredibly fun. So I'm just really looking forward to next season, and I hope that for Formula One, at least, it's a more even competition.
All right, Kobe, how about you?
Yeah, thanks, Joey. Isha, we're really happy to have you on the team. Looking forward to building upon our success this year in 2024. And my one shining moment from this weekend has to be Erebus Motorsport and Brody Kostecki for their championship winning season. It's been amazing watching Erebus rise, from being a team in the midfield, to being in the top 10 to now being the team to beat in supercars. It's been amazing watching what the team owner Betty Clemenco has been able to do with this organization. She was the first female team owner to win the Bathurst 1000, and now has a Supercars championship with Brody Kostecki as well. It has the team principal Barry Ryan there, and their lead engineer George and Brody's side of the garage. They're doing some really great things. The chemistry and the culture at Erebus, when you see how that team works so well together, it seems like a family atmosphere. If you're wanting to work in supercars, it seems like Erebus Motorsport is the place to be. And now they have a championship winning pedigree, and I think they're going to be able to build upon this success. And maybe we could see Erebus Motorsport not just become the team to beat next year, but years to come, and take that crown away from the Triple Eight operation. And also, it's been great all season long seeing Brody Kostecki come into his own. A lot of people thought he had potential to be great, and I think that potential has been realized, and he's become the driver everyone thought he would be, from breaking through, getting his first career supercar win during Grand Prix weekend in Melbourne, to one of his most memorable drives of the season, sweeping the entire round at the Benz Super Sprint, to remaining consistent all year long, not really having many bad races, and just basically riding the momentum on the way to the championship. It was just been a really great year for Kostecki and Erebus.
Great effort by Kostecki, Erebus Racing. My shining moment is going to go to Pecco Bagnaia, being a 2-time champion. He started off really strong, then looked like he got a little bit of a slump, allowed Jorge Martin to catch up, even Marco Beschecchi as well was catching up. People were doubting, can he do it? I know here we were talking about how it looked like Martin was the better rider for a lot of race weekends. As a defending champion, with the history he has, that could easily be a distraction. But this weekend, when he really took at the most, championship performance, went out there and got the win and the championship number 2. Big celebration, and now he's going to be going for 3 in a row next year. So Pecco Bagnaia, my shining moment from the weekend.
Very good. My shining moment is going to go to Yuki Tsunoda, defending on the last lap from Lewis Hamilton, clinching 8th place in the race. It wasn't enough to get AlphaTauri up in position in the Constructors' Championship, but still, what a defense. Yuki Tsunoda has this habit in the past of kind of scoring points kind of behind the scenes, silently off camera, and he got his moment to shine in that battle. And someone who has been operating behind the scenes and taking their moments to shine on camera this whole season has been Joe. So I'm going to toss it to you to close us out. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone, the Grid Network team, for making 2024 wonderful, great additions. Encourage everyone, buy me a coffee. You want to thank them, put their name there. We'll forward them the funds so that way they could thank you on the air the next time. And we're still going to be on the air tomorrow. Ben, he's not here today. He'll be here tomorrow for Formula 2 race weekend recap on Grid Encore. So be sure to tune in tomorrow. Hit the bell icon and subscribe so you don't miss the last Grid Live Encore of 2023. And a big thank you to our Patreon stars, Colin the Show, Mark, Rob, and David Matthew for investing in us. Link in the video description. 2024, we want to be at the track much more frequently. Send our team to the track. This is the way to do it. Invest in us. And in the video description, a link to everyone's channels, as we all come from different backgrounds. We all have our own channels, platforms, and we want to share our passion of motorsports with you, the viewers. So big thank you to everyone. For Isha Azim from Racing with Isha, Joey Rasul from Rasul Racing, and Kobe Lambs from the Podium Finish. I'm Joe Samaniego. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interview folks from the motorsports industry. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.